Is that why Dark Plagueis is showing up? Because he's like, hey, 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 can I cheat off your homework here? And what do we get? We get our favorite green little guy. And that's it. That is the last episode of this season of The Acolyte. So, what do we think about it? Um, I'm gonna go kind of fast here. I am not convinced that Soul is unalived. All right, I'm not convinced that he's gone, as she says, right? Because she even said it's like, oh yeah, he off himself. Um, I don't know. I'm not buying it. One, because he's probably my favorite character of the show, and two, because it doesn't really make that much sense to get rid of him right now. It makes sense for them to show us this, that he was kind of like the scapegoat, right? That totally matches with Vernestra. She's been trying to cover up all this stuff, and and of course, the only one is Saul, right? It's the obvious choice. I'm more inclined to say that she made him abandon the order, and like she was probably saying, "I'm sorry, old friend, because you're gonna have to go into hiding. You can never show your face again." All of that stuff. I didn't really buy the flip flopping of the sisters. I had a problem with May dropping everything as soon as she learns that Osha is alive in one of the earlier episodes. I she's been training with this master, right, with this stranger for years now, for the better part of 16 years. I don't know if the full 16 years since she escaped, but for the better part of those 16 years. And all of a sudden, as soon as she learns that her sister is alive, she's like, all right, I'm good. I'm just going to quit here and I'm going to turn you into the Jedi. I didn't get that. But then Osha kind of does the same thing. Um, we got a hint of it in the previous episode when she, grabs the stranger's lightsaber and puts it to his throat. But I'm like, where is this coming from? All of a sudden, Osha just has like, the biggest rage inside of her like ever, and she bleeds a kyber crystal in seconds. I don't have a problem with her bleeding a kyber crystal. Just I thought it was just a little bit too fast. All right, even Darth Vader took a while and a lot of effort, in the comic books. So I don't know about that timing. Um, the Let me see if I can get it here. The absolute best scene is again what we are calling Plagueis, right? And I say what we're calling Plagueis because remember, guys, that book is not canon anymore. All right, if it ever was. So the Dark Plagueis book is not canon. So does he look like the one in the book? Yeah, absolutely. Does it make sense for him to be here? In this time period, I think so. We can work with that. But what I'm trying to say is there is no guarantees. All right. There's no guarantees the story is going to go the same as it did in the book. There's no guarantees we're going to see him training Palpatine or creating life or any of that stuff. All right. So just curb your expectations because people are running wild already. They're saying he would be like 17 years old by this point or something like that. I'm like, no, we don't know that anymore. We just don't. Okay. Um, we don't know how long he's lived, if he has already managed to extend his life with the dark side, if that's even Plagueis. We don't even know if that's Plagueis, right? What if it's the janitor that cleans the cave after the stranger leaves? uh all I'm saying is we really don't know. All right, everybody's jumping to the conclusion that that's Dark Plagueis. I think so too. I agree. But again, that doesn't mean that we know everything about Plagueis, or that we know anything, I should say, about Plagueis anymore. And then the last thing I wanted to talk about was kind of like that last shot with Yoda, right? Um, I don't know. I Yes, it's cool, of course. More Yoda is always good. Um, I just kind of wish they would have sort of explained why he wasn't going to be in the show early on. And I don't mean like give us a whole briefing on it. No, just remember when they're reviewing the holo recordings of May killing Jedi, right, or fighting, and they're like, oh, we should take this to the High Council, and Vanessa was like, no, no, we can't, we can't talk to the High Council yet. I kind of wish, they would have said, Master Yoda is off on his very important trip or off on a mission, right? He can't be bothered. That's it. That's kind of all I need, right? But nowhere, nobody even says the word Yoda, by the way, in this whole show. And then at the end, we get him. Again, it's cool and all, but if a second season happens, now people, myself included, are going to be expecting to be a lot more tied into the story that we already know. They're going to want to see Yoda. They're going to want to see Plagueis. They're going to want to see Palpatine, probably. And that's where I think the show is going to start, getting into more trouble, right? Because this first season, we didn't really know anybody. I mean, maybe Bernestra a little bit. Um, and that gave them quote unquote freedom, right? But now, if you're introducing Yoda, if you're introducing Plagueis into the mix, it's a whole other game, right? So if you thought fans were not happy with the way you talked, you took the direction of the story, trust me, when you start messing with big names like Yoda and Plagueis, they are gonna burn this down. No, I'm just kidding. But they are not gonna be happy with your creative choices. I don't care what they are, unless you adapt, the book of Plagueis. Yeah, they're just not gonna be happy about it. So I think I would have been better with it if we would have seen that, like, sort of like the crystal start to become corrupt, right? Like start to bleed, but not really. And then later on, towards like the end of the episode, when we see the stranger and her like back in the planet, and how they're holding, lightsaber hands, right? And she would have like ignited the saber and then it was red, I'd be like, okay, you know what? Some time has passed and she managed to bleed the saber, right? Because she's been training. That would have been my head canon, right? It's a few weeks later or a few months later. She's been receiving dark side training, and part of that training was, complete the bleeding of the crystal. I actually would have been okay with that. Like I said, just sort of rearrange the moments, but visually, yes, it was cool to see a kyber crystal being bled. Um, the kyber was sticking out of the handle though, and she turns that thing on, and it still works just fine. Like that blade is still perfect. I don't buy that one too much, but visually, yeah, it looked cool. I would have loved for that last scene between the sisters, which again, it didn't make sense to me. They're like, ah, yeah, we're just gonna erase her mind. When they're hugging, when they're embracing, I was like, whoa, if Osha grabs the lightsaber and like stabs May, I was like, that would be metal. They don't do it, but for like 2 seconds, I thought they were gonna do it. And I was like, dude, that would be awesome. That would be like Osha is like, that's it. I've gone dark side 100%. My sister couldn't cut it. She's a liability now because she can tell the Jedi everything about us. I got to do this. I thought she was dead anyway for years and years. So this has to happen. And that to me would have been so freaking cool. The show is done for now, right? Again, we don't know if we're going to get a second season. I still think we probably will. There's still a lot to tell, obviously. But again, I worry about the connective tissue to the Skywalker saga, right? Um, Once again, you're bringing in Darth Plagueis, whom best we know is Palpatine's teacher, right? Palpatine's master, and Yoda, right? Like we said, so it's gonna be hard if they are doing a second season. It has to be a lot darker. One of the things that were promised by this show was to take things from the dark side perspective, and I don't think they achieved that. I didn't really see that, to be honest with you. It was all about the Jedi being, or at least starting to be corrupt, being very bad at, spur of the moment choices, and dealing with guilt, I guess, which we've kind of already seen. I didn't really get a dark side, perspective vibe from the show. I don't know if you guys did. I didn't really get that. So if there's a second season, that has to happen. They have to go full on dark side. They gotta show us, Moro Band or Cory Band. They gotta show us, like a Sith holocron, maybe flashbacks to Revan, to Darth Bane. Show us Kamir being recruited by the Sith. Show us Plagueis training somebody. It doesn't have to be Palpatine. It can be somebody else. Yeah, they gotta show us a little bit more of, actually, a lot more of what it really means to be like an acolyte, right? A Sith acolyte. Because I don't think we got that at all, almost, in this show. I think the closest we got was when Kamir is explaining stuff to her in the cave. Oh, there's an untapped well of emotions, and that's power. um I use cortosis, this is good against lightsabers. I use this headpiece because it actually cuts me off from my senses, so I managed to tap into the force a lot stronger, connection for combat. That's about all I can say that was related to like the dark side perspective, right? Which I hope to see a lot more in this show. And again, me personally, I don't think it got there. And so if there's a season two, they gotta go full on like dark side for sure. That's kind of it, But you let me know what do you think. Let me know how you thought this episode. Was it successful in wrapping up the show? Now that you saw all 8 episodes, did you think better of the show? Do you think it was a good show? Still pretty bad, or you were, what? I was kind of middle of the road. Fights were cool, but that's about it. Again, let me know down in the comments. I'm interested to see your opinions. But